Good morning, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners. Welcome to the latest edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Today, we have an exciting show on tap as we are doing our second live mock draft of this offseason. After doing one, Josh and we did one after the Senior Bowl. Today, we're going to be going over some different avenues to improve the Bucs roster with a special guest. I'm your host, Adam Slivon, and joined with me is my wonderful co-host, Josh Queipo, and Real Bucs Talks, Michael Pless. Fellas, it's great to be talking with you this morning. I'm going to start with you, Michael. How you doing?
Doing great, gentlemen. It's awesome to be here.
I am also doing well, Sly. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to get into the show with you because last time, Josh, we were a little bit handicapped. We could only operate with Senior Bowl prospects, kind of limited our range, and we may have reached for a guy or two, but it's fine. Today, we're going to be diving further and exploring some different ways to really upgrade this roster because through free agency, through the draft, I mean, Jason Light, he's going to be busy like looking at ways to upgrade the defense, especially linebacker. Everybody knows about the need for an edge rusher, and then also other players and adding depth. So it's going to be a great discussion.
Yeah, that's one of the things that obviously this is only our second episode of doing this particular type of pod, but one of the things that I was most excited when you and I were going over this idea of doing these every other week leading up to the draft was that we would do different themes. And obviously last week's theme, Senior Bowl, was a lot of fun because we actually got physical eyes on a lot of those players. So it was really fun to be able to translate that into, how can these guys that we saw up close and personal, got to talk to a lot of them, especially you, how do we see them fitting in not only on the roster, but in the locker room, right? Which is very, very important to the Bucs and keeping their culture. But also looking at different themes that we can do throughout this series. And I'm really, really excited about today's theme. It builds off of the mock draft that Scott and I put together earlier this week. And we did a live show Thursday night where we made a pretty big move on behalf of the Bucs. And Michael Pless here, he was gracious enough to say he would really like to kind of build off of that move and do a mock draft, a live mock draft with us where we address the edge need, the elephant in the room, right off the bat with a proven high-end player, a veteran player. So with that, Michael, you want to talk about exactly who we're going to go after and what that might look like?
Yeah, I think, obviously internal moves, we're going to bring back Chris Godwin. Ben Bredeson's going to be back as well. So you shore up the offense there. Defensively, we're gonna let go of Jamel Dean, Jordan Whitehead. So those cuts happen. And then Levante David, the big guy in the middle, is going to retire. So we're going to be moving on from Levante David.
That's a change from last one. Yeah. Adam and I brought back Levante. We thought he was coming back for, I think it's year number 13 or 14. We thought he would play
14,
Yeah, he would play in his age 35 season, I think, at that point. So there's a big change right there with Levante. In this scenario, he has decided to ride off into the sunset. I'm sure if he were to do that, his Ring of Honor would be just next year. It would be in 2025. They would quickly put him in the Ring of Honor, but that means another hole to fill on the defense.
Yeah, and when you look at the defense, I mean, this is a young team. This is the third youngest team from last season. If they lose Levante, they're only getting younger. And so to kind of offset that a little bit, there needs to be a veteran presence on defense, whether that's trading for somebody, signing somebody in free agency. There needs to be more veteran depth, right? Because Will Golston, he might even retire too. And then you're looking at no players on defense that are older than 30 years old. And that just speaks to, while there is a young core, the young core needs to learn from some other guys that have been in the league for a while, and they have some moves, whether that's an edge rusher like Khalil Mack, who's been in the league for a dozen years. He could add a lot to the room. So whoever it is, there needs to be another older guy there.
Yep. And that'll bring us to the big trade, right? So, Adam, do you want to pull up the mock draft simulator? We can kind of set everything up. So this is building off of the trade that Scott Reynolds and I put together for our mock draft this past week. So we are going to have the Bucs trading for Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's led the NFL in sacks over the last 2 years. And we're going to do a full 7-round mock, right? Right, guys?
Yep.
We're going the whole way.
That's good.
All right.
All right, let's do it. Any advanced settings that you guys want to change here to maybe spice things up a little bit?
I like the idea of going. Yeah, I like the idea of going full public board. Maybe take the care for positional value to like the halfway point.
Okay.
And same with the draft for needs.
Back a little bit.
And why don't we put the randomness in the middle as well? So we'll do all three.
Okay.
All right. And then don't forget to hit 7 rounds. You just did a 1-round mock.
It's fine. It's fine.
And we're trading that pick. We're done.
Yeah.
It's over.
Let me reload it here.
Well, before we get to the mock, let me also mention, I forgot to mention the free agent moves that we were going to make.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So we are going to add Ernest Jones, linebacker from Seattle.
Okay.
So he is a younger linebacker, 25 years old, hitting the free agent market. And I think he would be a really good addition. Again, fast, able to blitz, provide everything they need from that linebacker spot. And then also at corner, we're going to add a playmaker in Brian Murphy Jr., who had 6 interceptions last year. So I think with those 2 moves, you kind of solidify, 2 spots there that have, key veterans in place. And then hopefully in this draft, we can continue to add to those spots as well.
Yeah, Jones is interesting. Seattle traded for him midway through last season, and they basically overhauled their entire linebacking room by the end of the season. Part of them getting Jones was because they were horrendous against the run last year to start the season. They were averaging, I want to say, allowing 160, 170 yards per game over a certain stretch there. They couldn't get their fronts right. They trade for Jones, and all of a sudden their run defense improved immensely. He was able to get guys in the right spots. He was able to get communicate the structures really well. So he's a high-end run defender. And I think one of the things that he brings, he's not like an elite coverage backer, but he brings the one thing that the Bucs linebacking unit sorely missed last year, which is just the ability to move in space. The other thing, and I've been doing a little bit of research on linebackers and got an article, I think dropping, or may have already dropping later today. Lavonte David was blitzed or came in as a pass rusher 149 times last year. Wow. That is the most he has been used in that role since his rookie season. So the Bucs resorted to taking their 34-year-old linebacker and running him in to create pressure on the quarterback, because as much as and Michael, you and I talk a lot offline about different things, and I think we both felt that Devin White's talent, his name was probably farther than his talent was with the Bucs or his play. But that was one thing that he did at a very high level, which allowed Todd Bowles to keep Lavonte David back in coverage. So, and I don't think blitzing a 34-year-old linebacker 150 times is probably what the Bucs wanted to do last year, but because of a lack of other guys who could do it, they were resorted to that. So you bring Jones in, and I think he can play that role as well. I know we have Lavonte retiring, but it's just bringing that skill set, which is really, really important for a Todd Bowles defense, to have at least one linebacker who can play downhill, who can create pressure and havoc at the line of scrimmage. I really like that move. And then Byron Murphy's got a lot of inside-outside versatility. I think you named the number one skill set that the Bucs could use in their secondary, which has been sorely lacking, which is the ability to make plays on the ball. And those 6 interceptions were huge. And he comes from a defense similar, not exactly the same, but similar to what Todd Bowles does, which is leaving their coverage people out kind of on an island in a lot of regards, because Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Vikings, very much like Todd Bowles, they are two of the heaviest blitzing linebacker, two of the heaviest blitzing defensive coordinators in the NFL. So I like both those moves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do as well. And before we start up the mock draft, I do want to shout out a couple people watching the show this morning. So Christopher Arrington last night, he became a YouTube member. Welcome. And as well as that, we got Steven Stansfield. Let's go. Slay 509, a true rogue scout here, ready to discuss Bucs ball.
We love it.
Sharkles, hello, Pewter Report. I'm glad I can finally catch a podcast live. Flow Growth, good morning, PR. And JT Olson, good morning from snowy Michigan. I know they got some snow up there. All right,
we
fellas.
appreciate having all of you guys in. JT Olson, big fan of his. He covers the Bucs. And JT, you can kill me on Twitter. I forgot exactly what publication you work for, but we talk a lot online and very much appreciate his insights, as with everybody who's in here. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So before we start up the draft, do we want to hit up the Cincinnati Bengals line?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do the trade. So if you guys are okay with it, we'll stick to the framework that Scott and I put together during our mock draft earlier this week, which was the Bucs get Trey Hendrickson, pick 49 and pick 192.
Okay.
And they're giving up pick 19 and pick 83. So the Bucs will lose. They won't have a third rounder. They won't technically have a first rounder, but they will have 2 second rounders, a 4th, 5th, and 7th, which are their own. And then they pick up a 6th from the Bengals, which they previously did not have. They had traded that away. So.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, when you look at this first round, there's not a lot of blue chip talent. There's not a lot of first round, overall players. So getting a guy like Trey Hendrickson with your first round pick, I think you could call that a very high win, like very successful. So yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. You get a second rounder back, where the value, I think, makes tons of sense in this draft coming up.
So yeah, go ahead, Sly.
I was going to say that just trading a second rounder this year for the Bucs, trading pick 51 and maybe a 5th rounder next year made sense. But after reading the mock draft, and to your point, Michael, this is a weaker draft class where outside of like 8 to 10 guys, there isn't like a true game changer that's going to come in right away. And as well as that, you have Jason Light, who hits better on second and third round picks than he really does with his first rounders. So there's a lot of value in this draft class. I think we saw that, Josh, at the Senior Bowl. There's going to be guys drafted rounds 2, 3, 4 that will contribute just as much as round 1 guys. So I think that's a great trade.
Yeah. And then plus, I know you've been doing a lot of draft prep. If you can give us some insights, how many guys have you evaluated to this point? How many would you give a true first round grade on? And then how many do you like even in at that range at 19 where you think there's possibly good value, even if it doesn't quite match up with the Bucs needs?
Yeah, I mean, I have like 8 players right now on my channel. As far as evaluation, I've looked at, numerous of guys, but haven't really got into full depth yet. I want to continue to, build there, but just looking at, other people's work and like trying to evaluate what truly is going to be available at 19. If we're looking for a pass rusher, obviously the ideal situation is Mike Green for what they want, as far as a guy able to bend and turn the edge and add that speed factor. I think Donovan Ezeraku, I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's another one that I think makes a lot of sense in round 1 because he provides that bend. He provides the ability to get after the quarterback. And all the other guys, like you hear of Mikael Williams, you hear of Jalen Walker, you hear of James Pierce, who we just did a film study on. Like these guys, they're just like, they have moments where you see the flashes, but the consistency is still not there yet. And their true ability to like bend the corner, it comes into question. So a lot of these guys are, I don't know. I mean, I would put a day 2 grades on them. And that goes to show you like at that position, there's just not much there that's going to be available in a sense of getting true round 1 value.
Yeah.
You look at cornerback, same thing, like Slivon Revel, the guy from East Carolina. Yeah, East Carolina. Like again, he's coming off a torn ACL. Like there's questions there, and competition factor. Same thing with Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame.
Yep.
Like coming off a hip injury, like those are things to factor in. So really, outside of like Malachi Starks, who I think is super underrated, like if he falls to 19, I would love that pick. But other than that, there's really not much value. You're not going to take a linebacker in round 1. There's just too much depth in the later rounds, which we'll get into. So really, when you look at it from that standpoint, and I don't think we're going to go offense. So yeah, I mean, this is the right trade to make.
Yep.
I want Myles Garrett, but I think that's going to be a harder thing to pull off just because the Browns have a lot of work to do before the trade can be even made.
Yeah.
So when you look at Hendrickson, it makes a lot of sense because it's basically give him a contract or trade him. And obviously they're going to want value for him.
Couple of things before we jump in, just based off of what you said there. So one thing I want to clarify, because if the answer is what I think it is, then that means you and I see these two guys similarly, which I'm really excited about. But do you have Ezeraku higher than James Pierce in terms of your own personal grading?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't fully dived into Ezeraku yet, but he's going to be he's next on my list. Like
Okay.
I've just what I've seen from him as far as his pass rush and like highlights and stuff like that. Like obviously he makes a lot of sense, but right now watching Pierce just has a little bit too many question marks for me.
Fair enough.
Just the inconsistency against like higher level competition. Like he kind of disappears against better offensive line. So that worries me a little bit.
Okay.
Josh,
That's really cool because I have Ezeraku above Pierce myself. So I see them that way. I've done full evals on both of them. Go ahead, Slack.
There's a comment I want you to address because you did the mock draft with Scott this past week. It's from Ruben here. Do you really think Hendrickson will cost a first? He's worth it for sure, but he's also older, and the Bengals front office is very cap conscious. And I do want to add there that the Bengals, they don't pay defensive players. For as good as the offense is with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is likely to get a big deal. You never know with T. Higgins. They let a guy like Jesse Bates go a couple seasons, and now Hendrickson looks like he's on his way out too.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, Sly, is actually the Bengals had the most expensive defensive line last year.
Really?
In all of football. So it's not that they're paying like one player an obscene amount of money, like top 5 at his position group. But if you look across their entire defensive line, they had 4 guys all playing on vet contracts who they weren't cheaping out on. All 4 were making decent money. And so from a cash standpoint, they actually spent more on their defensive line than any other team in the NFL. And they didn't get much out of it. They got nothing out of it outside of Hendrickson. So, but to your point, they're already paying Joe Burrow. He is, I want to say, tied for the second highest contract or APY among quarterbacks. All signs are that they are going to pay Jamar Chase. There is a chance that Chase becomes the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, depending on the timing of his extension versus a potential extension for Micah Parsons and a potential extension for Myles Garrett. Those 3 are going to kind of be working to work off of each other. And whoever signs last out of the 3 of them is probably going to hit $40 million a year and be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. For Bucs fans out there, that means one of those 3 players will be paid more by about $7 million than Baker Mayfield. So just a little bit of context for you there. So kind of getting back to Ruben's question here, Ruben, you got to remember that it's not just a first rounder. If you think about it this way, yes, the Bucs are giving up a first rounder, but then they're also trading up from the 3rd to the 2nd round and picking up a 6th rounder. Okay. So that's kind of how you can think about that. And when you net out the value of all those complementary pieces, depending on whose trade chart you use, you can go look at the Jimmy Johnson chart. You can go look at the Brad Spielberger, Jason Fitzgerald chart, which is one I'm a big fan of, or you can look at a chart that I actually helped create. All of that nets out to like the value is somewhere between a mid second rounder to a high second rounder, low first rounder when you net out the entire value. And yes, Trey Hendrickson would be worth that when you consider the caliber of player that he is. And the Bengals will also be building into that on the trade. The fact that he has 1 year left on his deal and he's only being paid, I want to say it was $16 million in cash. So the team acquiring gets that contract. Yes, Hendrickson would likely be extended at that point. And I'm sure if this trade were to happen, Jason Light would be pushing back and saying, I got to give the guy a new deal. I don't really get the savings there from that contract. But the Bengals, they'll work something where they're like, technically you get this and we want some value for it. So we do feel like it's a fair value. You can see PFF, their trade simulator here says that this trade would be accepted. If you look at their PFF's trade simulator here, yes, you could probably get more picks on there, but it becomes less realistic, and we're looking for a realistic outcome.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So,
Right. Well, we'll go ahead and let's offer the trade here. They accept it. So we get Trey Hendrickson, pick 49 and pick 192, as Josh mentioned, while giving up 19 and 83. So with that, start the draft. And we're sitting here at number 49. So let's go through some of the moves made. So Cam Ward goes 1, Abdul Carter 2. We got Shador at 6. A little bit further, Mike Green went 18. So even if the Bucs kept 19, Mike Green goes a pick before.
That's heartbreaking.
Bengals used their very first pick on a running back. That's quite hilarious.
Got Demetrius Knight, number 20. That's surprising.
That is.
Amos. And then in round 2 here, Slivon Ravel, Gray Zabel, Senior Bowl star, Donovan Ezraku at pick 40, Princely Monomalian, number 43, Jahad Campbell, who's linked to the Bucs quite a bit at 44, and then the pick before the Bucs was
Carson Schwarzenegger goes off the board just a few picks prior to the Bucs picking, going to division rival Atlanta. So
that sucks.
So gentlemen, why don't we start off with some of the needs that you would like to address in the second round if there's a player of value? So are we still looking at edge? Do we think defensive tackle could be in play at this point? Do we want to look exclusively at linebackers and corners? Are there any offensive positions where you just think value might work out well for a pick here?
Yeah, I think I would probably look at defensive tackle, defensive line, corner would probably be on the board, and then linebacker. There's only one linebacker that I'm looking at, and that would be Chris Paul Jr. That would be that would be he's really high on my rankings right now. But let's look at see what
you mind filtering for defensive line, corner, and linebacker.
Yeah, let's do it.
And I'm going to add one in there. I'm going to throw wide receiver in because I do think that this is the range where wide receiver provides some pretty good value. And yes, the Bucs have Mike Evans. Yes, in this scenario, they brought back Chris Godwin, but Godwin is coming off of a serious ankle injury. Evans has already started to talk about retirement. I think he talked to you, Sly, at the Pro Bowl, started mentioning that he's thinking about it. And yes, Jalen McMillan had a pretty solid end of his rookie season, but we also saw what the offense struggled to find receivers to step up when both Evans and Godwin were out for about a month last year. So I think it's always a good idea to just keep an eye on wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to point out, Grace Point, what are the rules of this draft? So last time, Grace, when you watched it, it was all Senior Bowl players. This time, we're pretty open. The only move that we made was Trey Hendrickson. We felt the need to make a trade. And so with that, and also Chris Godwin and Ben Bredesen in this scenario are back. Jamel Dean, he's out of here. He's not making a scene in Tampa Bay. And Levante David, he's hanging up the cleats. He's had enough. He's played for 13 years. He's going to be in the Ring of Honor. He's going to be gone. So also signing Byron Murphy Jr., the corner, and the linebacker, Ernest Jones.
Yep. And Jordan Whitehead is also let go in this scenario.
Yeah.
All right. So who do we see? Who do we like?
Yeah, I mean, defensive line, I think, could be a position where you could wait till 119. There's so much depth at defensive tackle, but there's a lot of good prospects there.
Various Alexander.
I like Alexander. The only setback for him is he's probably likely 25 years old. So that kind of that factors with me. I try to tend away from that. But looking at like Omar Norman Lott, I really like. I think he would be a perfect 3 tech behind Kalijah Cansey, or can play alongside of him and just bring that juice to give you another option. Chris Paul Jr. would probably be my top guy to take right here. We do have another pick at 51. So you just have to think like what is going to be available on day 3 depth wise, because we could use a corner like Maxwell Hairston's pretty solid.
Yeah, so on the corner kind of train there, Darian Porter very much impressed me at Senior Bowl. And when you talk about like a Bucs type of corner in terms of the physical profile, I want to say he's 6'3", right around 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Long arms. He's got and he plays like he understands his length and he uses it to his advantage. I also want to say zebra tracking at the Senior Bowl had him as one of the fastest players in the entire event. So lots to like with him. He is on the older side, so that's something that I'm sure detracts there for you. Plus, but this is just an older corner class in general. Yeah. You look at all of the top guys. Morrison, I think, is going to be 23 before the season starts. Trey Amos is going to be 23 before the season starts. Slivon Ravel is going to be 23 before the season starts. Now, there's a difference between 23 and I want to say 24 or 25, which is Porter. So he's even old for the class, but he was somebody I was really interested in. And then I also think that we have to have the conversation, Pless, of Chris Paul versus Jalen Walker. All right. So you've made your thoughts on Paul known, right? He would be the guy you really like here. You've done a little bit of study on Jalen Walker. So let's start with the pros. Why would a team take Jalen Walker? And I think the second round is a really good place for him. He got first round hype. I think he's number 3 on, is it Daniel Jeremiah's board in terms of edge rushers? I think he ranks 3rd overall for DJ.
I think Dane Bugler has him.
Dane Brugler, that's right.
Yeah.
He's got him 3rd. So let's talk a little bit about what are the pros to Jalen Walker and then what makes him such a boomer bust pick.
Yeah, I think, athleticism is obviously there. I think he's got good play strength. The problem is like he just doesn't have a position. Like when you watch him at linebacker, yeah, he's got ability to come downhill and blitz and hit the gaps and stuff like that. Putting him at edge, he has some potential there, but
got some bend, man. He does
have bend. He does. Personally, I feel like he's going to be one of these combine guys that just explodes and probably ends up getting into the first round.
Yeah.
Just because I feel, some team is going to want that. They're going to be like, hey, I can mold this guy. I can make him, something. But I think his true position is probably going to be at edge. I just don't see him. The linebacker position just doesn't have the instincts there or the cerebral part of his game yet. It's just not developed. So Chris Paul, when you compare him to Chris Paul, like Chris Paul is a true linebacker. Like he understands the position. He understands how to play. And I think he's a perfect fit in the Buccaneers defense as far as A-gap blitzes, the ability to drop back into coverage, understand what his assignment is, I think is a big factor. And he knows how
tackle rate too. 4.5%. I mean, like you'll take that from a linebacker.
Yeah, he just knows how to make plays. I just like him. I like his ability to be a leader, very good teammate, talks very well as far as just understanding of the game. So he would be someone that I think should be probably top 75 pick in this draft.
Yeah, Paul has one of the higher stop rates out of all the linebackers that I've looked at, and I think I'm 11 or 12 deep at this point. So for those not familiar with stop rates, it's a defensive stops. It's a measurement that Pro Football Focus uses, where a player creates a stop that yields a negative play for the offense, whether it's a tackle for a loss or a tackle for a very minimal gain where they're not generating positive EPA on the play. His stop rate last year was 20.15%, which I think is the highest of any linebacker I've looked at so far. Also has a pressure rate for his career of 29%. And that's not as an edge rusher, that is as a true linebacker, which speaks to a lot of the things that I think you mentioned there. Plus, I did want to bring up Walker because I think in a Todd Bowles or just kind of going back to, we talked about the Vikings for a half second there, like a Brian Flores defense, you mug him up as an A gap, downhill kind of. I think that's the perfect system for Jalen to get the most out of Jalen Walker. And so I did want to bring him up, but to your point, Paul's probably the safer pick. So you want to go with Paul here?
So I'm going to let this be decided by some Pewter Report readers in the comments section. Be sure to leave who you think here. So I'll go through the list one more time. So we got defensive lineman, corner, and linebacker, some of the top prospects here. So we mentioned Chris Paul, Jalen Walker. Should they maybe go corner in this scenario if Dean's gone, maybe add more talent to the secondary? Whoever you think, be sure to leave it in the comments. But one thing is to be certain with this first pick, it's going to be a pick that electrifies and energizes the fan base. And you can be energized by sipping on some Celsius. If you didn't know, Celsius is the official energy drink of Pewter Report, and it's going to continue to fuel us throughout the offseason and draft season. Celsius has many fantastic flavors. You can get the Arctic vibe. You could be vibing out, get the peach one. There's also a raspberry peach, strawberry lemonade, watermelon lemonade, which I'm sipping on this morning. You can even get some essentials. There's a really good grape slush, blue crush, whatever flavor. You can find it by searching the Celsius store locator to find Celsius near you. It could be at a Target, a Publix, a Walmart, a Piggly Wiggly, Quick Trip, or, gentlemen, your bodega.
Bodega.
If you like the Celsius that you find anywhere, you can get it in bulk on Amazon with the subscribe and save feature. Just make sure that you're drinking Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. All right, so we have some comments here. Let's go.
Any super chats to just go front of the line and make the pick for us?
Not yet.
Okay.
But we'll start here at Anthony. He says, Chris Paul, please. Chris Paul. I like Chris Paul. JT Olson points out Xavier Watts, Andrew Makuba.
JT Olson is the ultimate contrarian when it comes to this.
I'd love Walker, but I don't think he'd realistically be here. Paul and then corner next pick, which is a good idea. Got Darian Porter.
All right.
Chris Paul.
Looks like the Chris Pauls have it.
Yeah, I'd say so. Chris Paul really overrules everyone. And Michael, you sound like you're a fan of that pick as well.
I mean, I would love this. This would be probably, if I had to put a team together, Chris Paul is on my guys. Like, he is my guys for this draft. Like, I just love what he brings to the table.
So Kieran did mention one comment. Surprised no one spoke about Bassa. Josh and I, we talked to Bassa at the Senior Bowl. Big fan of his game. He's a really intelligent player, kind of like the Levante mold in what would be asked for in the Bucs defense. Really athletic, a former defensive back, and really good coverage skills. But at this point in the draft, he'd be a reach. And Chris Paul, we mentioned it, is probably the safer pick at this point.
Yeah. All right,
so Chris Paul, you are a Buccaneer.
Long wait to the next pick.
Yeah. Jaden Higgins was taken in between. So that rules out one wide receiver.
Yeah. All right. So now we're back. Now, plus we could do the double linebacker, double up on the position, use Paul in the Levante David role as the will, and put Jalen Walker as that mugged up downhill Devin White style player. We could go corner here. Darian Porter is still on the board. JT Olson mentioned Xavier Watts, who is technically the highest ranked player on the board per former Pewter reporter Trevor Sikkema's draft board. So we've already really had most of this conversation. So I feel like we can jump into the pick fairly easily. We can throw Bassa in there, and I think Azariah Thomas maybe some conversations. So Thomas is a press man corner. That's something that the Bucs like. He meets their height requirements. He meets the length requirements in terms of the arm length. Had some good reps at the Senior Bowl. One thing I was a little concerned about was kind of his burst off the line, that 5 to 10 yard split. From the days that I was watching him, I had some concerns about his ability to keep up with receivers specifically in that area. He has the long speed and he can kind of make up ground late in the route, but I was a little concerned with that, 0 to 10 or 5 to 10 yard split. Anybody else in here? Kevin Winston Jr. I love Kevin Winston Jr. He's the only safety I've done
great
a
2023.
I fell in love with him. Now, he only played, I want to say 1 or 2 games this past year because of an injury, but I was a huge fan of his game, and I think that he would play excellently in this secondary. So I'm going to throw him out there as a player to watch and maybe consider here. But plus, if the pick is yours at 51, out of all these guys we're looking at here, who are you looking at? Who would you want to take it with this pick?
Yeah, I think, I would definitely consider defensive line, but I think you can wait until round 4, probably day 3, because that position is just loaded. Like it's so deep. There's a lot of guys.
45 or 46 being invited to the combine, and there was
a crazy number.
Thor Griffith, who was on the freaks list, was not invited to the combine.
Yeah. So I just feel like that's a deep group you could potentially wait on. I'm looking at corner or potentially safety, like you said. I do like Winston Jr. as well. Haven't watched much of Xavier Watts. I think he does fit the mold of being a guy that could be a nice box safety guy that can come up into the front there and give you some different things. The guy out of Texas, I don't know how to say his name.
Makuba?
Yeah, Makuba. Yeah, I really like him. I like his ability to make plays. Had a really strong season.
Okay.
So, I mean, corner.
So secondary, we think secondary would be
I would say secondary.
All right. Well, then why don't we turn it over to the chat?
And then there are also a couple people in the chat are mentioning Nick Amanwari. I'm getting that right. As another option. He's been linked to the Bucs as being a second-round fit. I don't know if that's someone that you guys have watched.
I haven't gotten to him yet, to be honest. I had been focusing on linebacker and edge myself, and I think Pless has been the same.
Yeah, pretty much. I've only really truly watched one corner. That was Ravel out of East Carolina. So I gotta get more on the secondary train here. But just from what I've heard and what I've seen from other people, I think Winston Jr. is a good pick just because of his playmaking ability. Hairston, I like, out of Kentucky.
Yep. I think one thing to remind the chat here is what does the Bucs defense look like at this point when they go to make this pick? So the front at this point would be Hendrickson, Vea, Cansey, and Yaya. I'm just looking at starters. The linebackers would be Ernest Jones, an established veteran, with Chris Paul next to him. The secondary would be at this point Byron Murphy Jr., Antoine Winfield Jr., I guess Christian Izien would be the default safety at this point, Tyke Smith in the slot, and then Zion McCollum. So out of all the positions where, you probably feel the most question marks, I guess, would probably be safety, where Christian Izien would be the de facto strong safety across from Winfield. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and put it to the chat. And if you super chat, you get to make the pick. Regardless of who you pick. If you want to put a punter here and make my day. If you super chat, it happened.
Hey, punter is a need. So
it is a need. And you like your punters, Josh. You can't refuse them.
I do.
I did want to make a point, though. You mentioned, laying out the secondary need by need, and Christian Izien being a big need, but also in this scenario, you got to look at cornerback, too. I mean, if Jamel Dean's gone, Bryce Hall, he got injured last year. He's likely gone. After the top 2, it's so thin and inexperienced. You got Josh Hayes and Tyreek Funderburk. I mean, if you look at a guy like Darian Porter, and one comparable that I really had to him is a younger Zion McCollum, because Zion, when he came into the league as a rookie, he sucked at run defense and tackling. But as he matured and the years went on, he got a lot better. He had 82 tackles last year, and he's a physical player. So the ability for him to mature, I see a lot of the same thing in Darian Porter. He already has the ball skills. He was a converted wide receiver. So you have that element in adding a playmaker and the potential starter down the road too. So
yeah, the thing with Porter, again, I just come back to and I love him and I would love the pick, but you're talking about a developmental guy who's 24, 25 years old. Typically, those guys don't develop a whole lot more. They kind of come into the league, and this is, to a certain extent, kind of who they are that you wouldn't see. I don't think there's necessarily a super high ceiling to grow to. So, but, all right, what are the comments saying, Sly?
Yeah, so we got JT Olson. Monworry is good too.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that pick.
Monworry is a good Whitehead replacement. Steven saying Maxwell.
Okay.
Slay says Iman Worry gives size and athleticism.
3.
Nick is a turnover machine. We got Iman Worry or Azariah Thomas.
Okay.
Get Mike Green. He's already gone.
Yeah, he's been gone for a while.
Malcolm says Iman Worry, Porter or Watts.
Looks
Anthony
like
says Xavier Watts would be my pick, but a lot of comments. Ooh, there is a super chat.
There it is.
There it is.
Azariah Thomas
Florida guy
could be the pick.
I'm good with Thomas. I mean, he fits the bill. He's got the size. He has the man press coverage ability, and with Trey Hendrickson being added, we could see more press man for the Bucs secondary. So makes a lot of sense.
All right, tall Florida guy got it.
Yep, he did.
Also, tall Florida guy. I really want to know what is tall. Like, can you drop
the height, drop the measurables?
Just give us your combine measurements. Like,
yeah.
We'll take
that 3-cone time.
40. What's the short shuttle? How many are you doing on the bench? Because I want to say that picture was also of you in the gym, so really works out well there.
Yep. Give us the Dan Patrick intro.
All right, so no 3rd round pick. So now we move to the 4th round pick, 119.
Obviously, we're taking Jackson Dart here. So
of course,
I was thinking the 270 offensive lineman,
Willie Lampkin. Let's go.
Let's get it rolling.
Heir apparent to Ben Bredesen, the 270 guard out of North Carolina, who had some impressive reps at Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Who did he take? Did he take on?
We got the measurables, guys.
Oh, we got him.
6'4", 256.
Okay.
Let's go. That's an edge rusher.
Yeah, put him at edge right now.
All right. So now that we're in the 4th round, what do we think? So are there any positions that we want to just filter into? We've addressed linebacker to a certain point. We've addressed edge to a certain point. We've addressed corner to a certain point. Yeah. This is where I would actually like to add in definitely defensive interior, definitely offensive interior.
Okay.
I think both of those should be a part of this kind of filter.
Safety.
Yeah.
So looking back at the board here at some of the picks, because there was like 4 safeties available when we last picked.
Yeah, they all went 3rd round.
Yeah. Darian Porter went a couple picks after. Xavier Watts went 61. Darius Alexander 63. But to the Chiefs,
be a good fit to the Chiefs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maxwell went 73. Elijah Arroyo. I know the Bucs don't need a tight end because they got Cade Otton, but he looked good during the Senior Bowl week.
Yep. Yeah, tight ends a strong position this year. Very, very good group.
Josh, I know you like this one. RJ Harvey went 87.
That was about 500 picks too early.
Kobe Bryant went 90. I liked him.
Trey Harris going 95 to the Kansas City. Oh man, Kansas City's
steal. Oh, Nick went at 101.
Okay.
18 picks before.
Alexander, an interesting corner out of LSU. Fits the Bucs size profile.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, one guy that jumps off to me looking at this list, guys, is
I knew you were gonna go Peebles.
Yeah. Just because he can do the worm. I mean, that should put him
that
in
is true. He can do the worm. So I'm not a huge fan of Billy Bowman here. Are there any other safeties in this range, or is it just bad value at that point?
Upton Stout.
So not really a safety.
Yeah.
I could see the Bucs going for Stout, but he's what, like 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah.
So if you're drafting Upton Stout, you're going to throw him in the slot and you're going to kick Tyke Smith up to safety, which I'm not opposed to, but he's just, I wouldn't play him at safety. He's a lot like Izzian in just like he lacks the size and the punch, I think, required of that position, especially to play strong safety.
Yeah, just at safety, looking at it, there's not many guys outside.
We're not doing Shiloh Sanders in the fourth.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, safety isn't much there. At least as far as I've watched.
Do we want to put wide receiver in the mix too?
That's not a bad idea.
We could put receiver. Yeah.
Still 4 more picks left. Let's see what
I do like Pat Bryant.
Tell us a little bit about Bryant, because I haven't had a chance to look at him at all.
I mean, I like his size. Size, good speed, pretty detailed route runner, and he's a playmaker on the ball. So I like what he would bring. He's a little bit bigger, so he has that outside true like X type of receiver.
Yeah, I mean the drop rate and the contested catch rate right off jump off the page there. I don't know if PFF puts the yards per route run, but
no, at least not on this screen.
Not really a volume producer, it looks like.
6.9 yards after catch, 18 yards per reception with the
average depth of target definitely goes to that X receiver that you're talking about, kind of like somebody who could maybe develop behind Mike Evans. So I mean, I wouldn't hate it. So
Buccaneer Bryce does say that Pat Bryant is a Jags fan. No thanks. I think that takes him off our board here.
Yeah.
I don't understand this bad blood between Bucs fans and Jags fans. Did something happen recently?
Yeah.
What do you think of Juice Wells, Josh?
I haven't had a chance to look at him, to be honest. I've done full evals on about 30 players and then partial evals on probably another 25. So I've been doing a lot of free agency prep. So I'm a little late right now on the draft stuff, but ask me in 2 weeks and I'll probably have a better understanding for our next show. But this one, I'm going to rely a little bit more on Pless. The one that I would look at, like that jumps off the page to me right now, is Aeneas Peebles. Like he did have a really good Senior Bowl. He would be somebody to kind of develop behind Kalijah Cansey. He is a smaller, kind of a 3 technique kind of guy, and somebody I kind of like there.
Yeah, roughly 6'1", 290. Kind of speaking to that Kalijah Cansey build. You look at his pass rush win rate at 17.7%. While he only had 3 sacks this past season, I mean, that's a high, like, you can develop him into maybe being that Kalijah Cansey light, like somebody that rotates in, maybe plays 30-40% of the snaps and can make an impact.
Yeah, I think defensive line is such a underrated need for this team. I think you have to find ways to upgrade what you have behind Vita Vea, Cansey, and yes, Logan Hall.
Oh my God! Somebody needs to clip this. Why you don't know how much this man loathes Logan Hall.
I mean, to give him credit, he did make progress last year. So let's hope that continues. But I think you got to get better with the Greg Gaines and the other people that you have behind them. Like that, you need some guys that can provide something more, like have more upside to get into the backfield. Like the guy I liked the most that didn't play much, I wish he would have played more, was CJ Brewer. Like I thought he showed good things, but they need guys like that can provide, a little bit more pass rush, a little bit more disruption in the backfield. And Peebles is definitely one to look at. There is one name.
Todd Bowles likes to build his pass rush inside out.
If
you look at how he's used premium picks in the past or just picks in general, he tends to invest more on those interior positions than he does on the edge positions, much to many fans' chagrin.
Yeah, and there's one guy that I really like out of Oregon, Caldwell. I think he would be a good addition. He's probably still available. He's ranked, I think, 200. That needs to be updated. Yeah, there he is right there.
Mari Caldwell.
Yeah, really like his game. Again, big,
A lot of
stout guy.
hurries.
Yeah, he's got a lot of potential. I think he's going to go a lot higher than obviously where they have him ranked, but he's a good player.
He's a big
got that,
boy too.
Yeah,
What?
he's got that size. Yep.
6'1", 340 though. He's built like a tank, a fridge. Man.
6'1", 340. Oh
yeah, that's what it said. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
He'd better hope that weight comes down and that height stays the same when he gets his official measurement.
Hey, the guy can hold up in the run, and then he can provide, some pass rush ability. So he's a guy to look for.
Gosh, at that size, you have to figure he's Captain America's shield or Thor's hammer. That's what it is. Thor's hammer. Nobody's gonna move him. Doesn't matter how small he is. He's just dense. All right, let's put it to the chat. Let's put it. Vince Wilfork build. I love that. So let's put it to the chat. Who we drafting, chat? Once again, super chats go front of the line, get to make the pick, and then if not, we'll just do consensus.
Also, shout out Nick Nash, had a big season for San Jose State. Another guy I have to dive more into, but 6'3", at least listed here.
Fiery frame. 195 on a 6'3" frame.
Yeah. Scroll down a little bit here.
Zeke Biggers is another one. I like Biggers.
Okay.
Georgia Tech.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's got that size.
Not a real pass rusher though, but again, somebody that can plug up the run. Just a brief look at some of the other guys here. Maybe not at positions of need. You have Barrett Carter, the linebacker from Clemson. I liked him a couple of years ago, but he's kind of, I don't know, maybe plateaued a little bit.
So you want to take a look at the chat, see what we got?
Yeah, let's do it.
Wait. Whoa. Go back. Yeah.
Oladejo? I know that's who you saw for 0.3 seconds.
Need to add him. Need to add him to the list. Oluwafemi Oladejo. This is he's like a very similar build, rocked up dude, much like Yaya Diaby. Late to the edge rushing game because he was just switched there this past year. But in a Todd Bowles defense, you almost want your edge rushers with middle linebacker experience, and that's what he comes with. And he was winning a lot of those one-on-ones. He can set the edge really well as a run defender. I think if he's available here, I'm going to try and sway the chat and say this is the guy to go with right here. I know you already drafted or you already traded for Hendrickson, but the Bucs could lose both Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and Anthony Nelson, which would mean Oladejo could pair with Chris Braswell as that B team that gets cycled in. So I'm going to put it out there that would be my pick here. Oladejo. I think that's good value. So
Josh, you already convinced somebody in the chat. Aaron, he said people's names like Oladejo. Change my pick.
There we go. Change my pick. I love it.
Yeah, Oladejo is a guy I really like. I don't think he's going to be available at 119, but if he is, that is a easy pick. And I would agree with Josh. I think he should probably be the pick here. But I just don't see him. I don't see him making it this far. I think his upside and his tools too good.
Shamar Turner, Brian mentioned, he is still there.
Turner. Quincy Riley is another good player.
Yep, Quincy Riley is a really great option. Somebody that
it's been decided.
There it is, Grace. Let's go, Grace Point.
Thank you for the super chat. So Oladejo is going to be the guy here.
That is, really, really good pick. He's got good size, good explosive off the ball, off the snap. Really can have that bend ability that you look for at the edge position.
Yeah,
and again, like a chess piece. And the defense, somebody that can play inside, play on the edge. I mean, that has a lot of value, especially if there's like a fit for Oladejo. The Bucs and Todd Bowles, I mean, has to be near the top of the list.
Yeah, and that PFF measurements for him quite a bit off. I've got his official Senior Bowl weigh-in. It was 6'2" 3/4 of an inch, 261 pounds, and he looked every bit of it. So, all right, let's make that pick. I'm liking this draft so far.
Just a review of our picks so far. So we traded the first round pick for Trey Hendrickson, drafted Chris Paul with pick 49. Azariah Thomas with pick 51, and Oladejo just now at pick 119.
Solid.
That, Would you say safety is the biggest need?
Definitely something I think that should be looked at. Now, you could address safety in a tangential way, which would be a pick like Quincy Riley. Now, Riley, his size profile means that he would be more of a slot option for the Bucs, but he's played primarily outside corner his entire career. He has less than 100 slot reps over the last 3 years combined.
Yeah.
All right. So, but he gives you then inside outside versatility. And if you were to draft him, you could push him into the slot and then push Tyke Smith up to safety. So you've addressed safety. I'm not going to say you've upgraded both positions because I don't think Riley would be an upgrade in the slot from Tyke. And he's not necessarily a slam dunk there because he's a willing run defender, but he hasn't been the most consistent tackler. And obviously with the way offenses are moving these days, you have to have somebody who is a net positive as a run defender and a guy who can bust up screens from the nickel. But I was a big fan of what he did at the Senior Bowl. I've gotten a chance to look at some of his tape. I really, really like a lot of that. So I would be a huge fan of Quincy Riley here, and you're addressing safety in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could be an option. I don't know. Can we look at safeties and see what we have?
Yeah, of course.
We can look at safeties, but the pick's already been made for us.
Oh, there we go.
Sean, he said Riley. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat there.
Appreciate it, Sean. We will make the pick, but let's go ahead and look at some of those other options. Yeah,
Jackson Dart, obviously. Pick him.
Who we took in the second or fourth round, something like that. Was Dart our pick at one point? We were joking about that.
Yeah.
So Dorian Strong, Denzel Burke, more corners. Achille Arnold.
Yeah.
Ricky White was a part of Scott and I's mock draft earlier this week, our mock draft 2.0. Downfield kind of ball winner, not an elite speed guy, but he has been extremely effective as a vertical threat. Probably run mid 4.4s if I had to guess.
A lot of production too.
Yeah, so nothing's really popping to me as far as safety goes. Again, I have to watch more on these guys. I would probably, if the draft turns out this way, I'd probably lean towards free agency and get in a safety, like a veteran safety to bring in potentially.
Well, and you bring up a really good point there, Plus, because it's a loaded safety market. It has been year over year now. There just seems to be a plethora of available talent where you can actually still find a talented safety post-draft. So after round 1 and round 2 of free agency, there's still going to be some talented kind of buy low candidates that you can pick up for a song and not have to use a ton of resources from a financial or a draft capital standpoint. All right, so let's just throw in Riley then.
Yeah, but you mentioned buy low candidates in free agency, maybe trying to find some value later in the draft. I mean, there's no better way for you to find value than by going with a Muni Financial.
Boom!
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations, we're so happy for you.
Thank you. And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Managing your family's wealth means more to a Muni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. With 40 years of experience, let a Muni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Call Muni Financial at 800-868-6864. Again, that's 800-868-6864, or visit amuni.com. All right, so we're going to get back here. Thank you, Josh, for the hockey assist there. All right, so we have our pick, round 5. I think it's great value, getting Louisville corner Quincy Riley here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good pick. Again, it adds more depth to your outside corner room. It also gives you versatility, like Josh mentioned, as far as nickel position. But mainly, it takes guys like Tyreek Funderburk and Josh Hayes off the field in case an injury does happen. It just gives you that flexibility where maybe Christian Izzian can play safety. You can move Tyke back to nickel if something does happen. So I think it makes a lot of sense because they have to improve that corner depth. It can't be like what we saw last year with guys just not being playable out there, and you force your hand of the defense.
Yeah, I'll ask you this. It's a little bit of a running joke for me. Who behind Zion and Jamel, who was their best outside corner? Didn't get many snaps at it, but who was the best outside corner past those two guys?
It was probably Christian Izzian.
It was Christian Izzian, who had never played outside corner in college at all or at the pro level. So,
Yep.
All right. So, Sly, can you take a real quick look at our picks so far so we can get our bearings?
So adding to the secondary with Azariah Thomas and Quincy Riley, rounds 2 and 5. Inside linebacker addressed it with Chris Paul Jr. in round 2. And Oladejo getting that edge, kind of versatile player in round 4.
Okay. All right. So I think defensive line, I think this is probably where we see some value. You had mentioned Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon as somebody that you'd be targeting right about here. Plus, that I'm hoping Thor Griffith is still on the board. This is where I would probably be looking at him as well. I was a big fan of the tape that I got to see on him. The draft eval on him was pretty high. So I think there's good value with both of those guys. We have not taken any offensive players to this point. I think wide receiver and guard or interior offensive line would be two other spots to kind of look. And I think it's important. There you go. Yep. I think it's also important right here if I'm going to be transparent. Because of the Bucs needs, I haven't done a ton of evals on offensive players and specifically interior offensive linemen. So anybody who shows up, like Tyler Cooper is number 1 on the board here, I have no insights into him. So there are going to be other guys who I'm probably pounding the table for because I just haven't had a chance to look at him yet. So Dylan
Fairchild, he was a solid starter for the Bulldogs. And before the season, I remember he was being mocked as like a second, third round pick. Here he's on the board in round 6. And I know he played a lot of left guard there.
Good size.
Could be an option, you know?
Yep. Yeah, he's definitely the Bucs size profile. Definitely their profile in terms of a very good pass protector. So I think that would be one that would be interesting if you want to look at an interior offensive lineman. So you want to expand a little bit more on Caldwell, though, Plus, since he is somebody that you are very high on?
Yeah, so when I'm watching players, I look for, functional athleticism, meaning what can these guys do with what they're being asked, and how do they operate, what's the process of what they're doing on the field. I think that's very important to look at because a lot of these guys, and this is why I didn't like Logan Hall coming out of the draft, because he just didn't show me anything as far as purpose behind what he was trying to do or trying to accomplish. So a lot of it was athleticism, winning with athleticism, and that's all great in college, but when it comes to the pros, you have to find ways to apply technique, apply your athleticism, and make it work for you. And when I watch Jamari Caldwell, he understands how to hold up against the run, knows how to stack and shed blockers, knows how to get into the backfield. There's a lot of things to like with his game. And I think he's super underrated. Again, I think he's probably going to go much earlier than this, probably round 4 at the latest. I think guy's a really good football player. And at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to draft. You're trying to draft good football players that can build or uplift the unit as the defense, like uplift your team and make your depth that much better. Because when you can sub out Kalijah Kancey and go to Caldwell, that's going to allow you to keep that floor at a higher level than what it has been in the past. Same thing with Vita Vea, because we know when Vita goes out, it's just not as good. Teams decide to run against us and they can find success there. So adding a guy like this, I think would make a lot of sense. He's just a really good high floor prospect that you can be really happy about.
Yep. All right, I'm going to call a little bit of an audible. I know typically we've been very democratic or just monopolistic in terms of asking for super chats. But with Pless being such a great guest, I want to give him the pick here. So he's made the case for Caldwell, but I don't want to just assume that that's the guy he wants. But I do want to give him the opportunity. Plus, this pick is all yours.
Okay.
Who do you want?
I mean, obviously Caldwell's the favorite. If we can look at, let's see, we have interior offense line receivers. No, that's
the filters real quick. Let's look at the whole board.
Yeah, if we can do that, that's fine. Yeah, I couldn't tell you much about Cooper. Ollie Gordon. There's a lot of good running backs.
Big 2023 season. Not as much. He didn't have as much work in 2024, but
if you draft a running back, the Sean Tucker truthers,
they're gonna
address.
We're all gonna die because of that.
What about Jay Higgins?
Jay Higgins. I worry about the functional athleticism with him, but he is a very good, smart, instinctual player. Knows how to play the position pretty well.
Like that coverage grade really jumps off the page there.
Yeah, like he understands how to play linebacker. Like again, when I talk about like true linebackers, Chris Paul comes to mind, and then obviously Jay Higgins is right there. Just Higgins, I worry about his athleticism, sideline to sideline speed. Trying to see. Yeah, I wish I could say more on safeties, but I just don't. I haven't watched any of these guys, unfortunately. Fairchild,
he's played there a long time at Alabama.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Alabama players, but I know we've gone down that road a while back with Mark Barron, and that didn't turn out well. But
you did want SEC safety named Malachi in the first round, and you're telling me it's bad value in the sixth?
Well, Malachi Starks actually have at outside corner. I think he would make a really good corner.
Fair enough.
All
right. Well, who do you have for the pick, sir?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go with Caldwell just because I was gushing about him. So I think he makes a lot of sense.
All righty. That leaves us with one more, a seventh rounder.
This has flown by. We're already in round 7 here.
Okay. Fairchild's still
there.
Yeah, Fairchild makes a lot of sense. Great name. Put that next to Tristan Wirfs. I mean, can't go wrong there.
I think I'm a fan there. I'm not a fan of Shmael Mondon Jr. He had a couple of good moments at the Senior Bowl. You were talking about worrying about functional athleticism. I think that's my big worry for him there. See, can you scroll down, Sly?
Oh yeah, hold on 1 second here. There we go.
Dante Trader Jr. Yeah, I think for me, if I'm looking at this, Teddy Buchanan.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, I would want Buchanan or Fairchild, and I would lean Buchanan.
Buchanan, yeah.
That also stays with our all defensive team too.
Hey, that's what I'm about right there. Yeah, Buchanan makes a lot of sense. Adds special teams value, has good enough athleticism to get downhill, fits the mold as far as a blitzing style type linebacker, but also can do some things and understands where to be as far as coverage goes. So I think he makes a lot of sense. Also gives you some versatility to put at edge potentially. So yeah, I like that value. But also
Buchanan or Fairchild, I feel like they're the two guys here.
I would probably lean with Josh here and go Buchanan just because I think offensive line, I think you're set up well enough. I think you can, and I think this is a good draft where you can find some undrafted free agents for offensive line to add to the mix behind Elijah Klein, and compete with Ben Bredesen.
Yeah, you mentioned some underrated candidates, like guys in undrafted free agency. Maybe they're going to be on the practice squad or just walking on to join the roster. If you want to go somewhere for some great food today, maybe catch the NBA All-Star game, there's no better place than walk-ons.
Yeah, so what happened out there tonight?
We struck out at home with leftovers, then we remembered walk-ons.
What effect did the situation have?
Spirit soared. Nick took on a burger. Jen obliterated her ribeye po' boy. And speaking of spirits, Laura even scored a real tasty cocktail. She needed that.
Any lessons learned today?
Yeah. head straight to walk-ons.
Scratch-made dishes, wall-to-wall TVs, craft beers, and cocktails. Walk-ons for the win.
You can go to walk-ons at one of their 3 locations in the Tampa Bay area, Wesley Chapel, Midtown Tampa, and as well Lakeland. If you go on a little bit further, you can download the Walk-Ons app, earn, save, and win with their rewards. If you download it today, you can earn free mozzarella logs, and you can also try their wings with their Southern bourbon sauce. If you do that, you earn 100 bonus points for some different rewards. You know that Pewter Report likes Walk-Ons. It's where we had our Christmas party. Great food, great appetizers. Even if it's not football season, you can still score big by going over to Walk-Ons. All right, so Teddy Buchanan sounds like the guy. Let's look at what the Pewter people have to say. Pless and Josh, great work like Buchanan. Grace Point says,
yep.
Great special teams candidate, as you mentioned, Michael. What about the guy from Sacramento State who played the Senior Bowl? Sacramento State, I think it's Clay Webb here.
Clay Webb. No, he's at
Jackson. That's
yeah.
Jackson.
Don't see.
He might have been on. He might have gone.
Yeah, he might have gone already. Take a page out of Howie's playbook. I like that comment. Buchanan for this scenario. JC Allen. Shout out JC Allen. Look at this group of hooligans. We are some hooligans right now.
Yeah.
And I think we are going to draft Teddy Buchanan here.
Sounds good. Yeah, this is the earliest podcast I've been a part of, which is awesome because I love talking football. So it's always a great start to the day.
Yeah, we when we were talking about this, we wanted to do something a little bit earlier, something on the weekends for our loyal fans who love to catch us, but just can't do that normal drive time 4 p.m. weekday spot. So we really enjoyed being able to give them and you as our guest a little bit of a time alternative. So how does that? What is
low reveal here of these grades?
Oof, yeah. Thomas.
A- for Quincy Riley.
That's right.
C- for Caldwell. B+ for Buchanan. C+
Did they grade the trade?
Overall grade.
I don't think they come because of Hendrickson, right?
Yeah.
I like it. So let's talk about what the Bucs defense would look like, right? The offense basically remains the same. So the starting lineup would be Hendrickson, Vea, Cansey, and Diaby along the line. And then your B team would be Oladejo with Braswell on the edge. And you would be able to take Jamari Caldwell and pair him with Logan Hall. Based on Caldwell's size profile, plus you've watched him, you think he can play the nose? You think he can be the 0 the 1 technique next to Logan Hall?
Yeah, I think he's got good functional, versatility there to play the 0, the 1. He could even play some 3 tech. Like he's got that kind of ability. So I think there's some untapped potential there, and to get him in the 6th round, that would be a steal.
Okay. So then the linebacking core goes from Levante David and guys to Ernest Jones and Chris Paul as the starters. And then the backups would be Servassier Dennis and Teddy Buchanan as your depth linebackers. I think that's definitely an improvement. JJ Russell would probably be in there, though. Russell currently unsigned by the Bucs, but he's an exclusive rights free agent, which means they can literally just bring him back for league minimum for his service time. Then the secondary becomes Byron Murphy Jr. and Zion McCollum as your starting outside corners, perimeter guys. Azarea Thomas would then become number 3. Quincy Riley would give them some outside versatility. The nickel would be probably Riley there with Tyke Smith moving up to safety along with Antoine Winfield Jr. Probably still some depth concerns at safety at that point that the Bucs would want to potentially address later in free agency, but there should be plenty of players available to try and address that need. I like this draft. I think the defense definitely takes a step up in terms of the depth and the quality top to bottom of the roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at it, you've improved your athleticism on that side of the ball. You've added speed. You've added players that can play right away. Maybe not so much a blue chip talent, but you've added guys that are solid floor players that have potential to maybe grow into something more down the road. So when looking at it, you improved your depth. And I think you've improved your biggest needs on defense, which to me is linebacker and corner. And you've upgraded those both, while also adding a superstar at edge in Trey Hendrickson. So getting that, it's going to make your defense that much better and able to create more turnovers, which is what Todd Bowles wants from his defense.
Yeah.
And while we were open to drafting offensive players, I mean, the way that the board shook out, I mean, at each round, these were some of the best players available. And really, like you mentioned, just kind of plugging in some much needed areas on defense, especially with the scenario of Chris Godwin and Ben Bredeson coming back. There really isn't too many offensive needs for the Bucs to really address here. Josh, you mentioned adding another wide receiver, and I think there is some value in that with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, kind of Godwin's nearing 30. Yeah, Mike Evans at 32 before the season starts. So sooner rather than later, the Bucs will need to add more talent there. But otherwise, with left guard, if Bredeson's back, you have Elijah Klein, last year's 6th-round pick. You're kind of set there. Maybe with Justin Schooley, as Tristan Wirfs likes to say, and Robert Hainsey, potentially gone in free agency. Interior offensive line could become more of a need, but really happy with this draft, guys.
Yeah, and I talked you two out of taking snaps away from Sean Tucker, so it's a win for me.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
no, this has been a really good one. We didn't set the parameters as a defense only draft. We just ended up that way, but I really like it. So, Pless, do you want to plug where can Bucs fans find you and all of your Real Bucs talk?
Yeah, so check us out we're on X or Twitter. I call it Twitter. You can check us out there at Real Bucs Talk, or check us on our YouTube channel, Real Bucs Talk. Just type that in, and we have a lot of good stuff coming out. More, film studies, more draft breakdowns, and we're gonna try to dive into last year's tape from the Buccaneers perspective and look at some guys. We already started with Yaya Diaby, who did progress quite a bit from his first season to last year. I know that everyone wants the sacks, everyone wants the high end plays, but the guy played very well. So that's something to check out. And guys, I appreciate you, giving me this opportunity to be on with you. So a lot of fun.
Yep. Now, and I hear you got a really great guest coming up this upcoming week too.
We do. Yeah. We'll have Josh Queipo on Wednesday. Yeah. Wednesday night. Not sure of the time yet, but we will be on Wednesday talking more Buccaneers football, probably dive more into the Senior Bowl and, provide some nuggets there. And then, look ahead to the combine, which is going to be, I think a lot of stuff is going to be coming out during that week as far as trade rumors, free agency, all that stuff usually comes around that time.
Yep.
Pewter people, be sure to check out Michael's work over at Real Bucs Talk. And for his coverage and our coverage of the NFL Combine coming up, you can also find us at pewterreport.com, as well as our X, Facebook, and Instagram channels at Pewter Report. Guys, this has been a great show. Michael, you've had fantastic insight. It was great hearing you even make a pick in the 6th round. And Josh, as always, your numbers are the best. And yeah, that'll do it for us here on this live mock draft. Be sure to tune in a couple Sundays from now, as we'll have another guest on the show that we're really excited about. For Josh Queipo and Michael Pless, I'm Adam Slivon saying thank you, Bucs fans. Be sure to check out our podcast tomorrow. And we are out.
Out.